Welcome back to the latest episode of the Key and Mang audio experience. I'm your host, Mang, as always, with my fellow co-host, Key. Key, what's good?
What's up, man? How are you?
Good. I'm just out here working on my vocals with my new mic, trying to be like you.
Yeah, I don't have my mic today, so I can't be rapper Keisha Keys today.
Yeah, I'll be singer Mang today.
Preacher man.
All right, what we got on deck for today?
We got so if you go online, or at least let's start over. I did it wrong. I'm sorry.
Huh?
Do we have to start the intro over?
Nah.
All right. So what we got today? So exercise is for everyone. So whether you're recovering from an injury, you are sedentary and not too active, or you're playing a sport and trying to improve your performance, it's something that's for you, whether you're in those three categories. And the only thing that you have to consider is starting where you are. You need a form of activity that meets you where you're currently at and fits your current capabilities. So this episode is going to give you some tips to help you get started, no matter where you fall within those three categories. So first tip that I would say would be doing something that you like and you're genuinely interested in, because a big part in exercise is being consistent. And if you are doing things that you don't like, it's hard for you to be consistent. And if you want to be able to do this for a long period of time, you want to enjoy what you're doing. So finding something that you enjoy is going to be crucial. So if you go online, you probably see a lot of people doing a lot of barbell lifts, and it may be intimidating for you. And if that's the case, you have to know that you don't have to do barbell lifts. There's different forms of exercise, different equipment you can use, but just finding the type of movement that makes you feel good and you feel you can be consistent with is a good starting point.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think, and it doesn't have to be just be, um, barbell stuff. It doesn't have to be. It could be like if you like to walk, if you like to dance, if you like to other ways the fun ways to get your heart rate up or get stronger besides just what you see on Instagram. So I think it's about taking a deep dive into what you like, and like you said, what you like and what you don't like, and kind of being honest with yourself about what you're trying to get out of, and understanding that everybody knows that exercise is good, and it's healthy, and it can lead to positive changes for the brain and your heart and pretty much your whole body. But it's just about finding, like you said, finding that starting point and making it something that you can do for a long time, something that you can enjoy, because you're making a commitment to yourself, and usually it's for the long game. And speaking of the long game, I think something that's really important is to understand, especially if it's something that exercise is not really your thing, and you're coming into it for the first time, or you're injured and you haven't been able to work out how you normally do. You got to think about the long game. You're going to be sore after not doing anything for a while. It's going to suck. It's not going to feel great. But that's part of the process. Your body's going to adapt depending on the stress that you place on it. So as you're able to monitor the stress levels that you place on your body, you're going to get better and better at adapting to that stress. But it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to happen, week by week, month by month, year by year. If you keep making daily deposits, little deposits over time, you're going to have a lot of bread in your bank account because you've been putting in deposits day by day. And I wish there was a red pill you could take and, you achieve all your goals tomorrow. But like everything, you gotta work for it. You gotta work for what you want. But I think figuring out what you want and then understanding that it's gonna take a long time. It's gonna take some work. We don't know the exact direction, but it's gonna take work. I think that's something that is super important. It's super important to remember as you go on your exercise journey.
Yeah, and playing the long game is really just setting the expectation, like you said, to know that you're gonna feel like tired at first, maybe sore, and then over time, as your body adapts, you become less sore. But I think without that expectation, you probably will get discouraged and feel like it's not for them because maybe they're staying sore for too long or it feels too challenging. But having that expectation allows you to be consistent over a long period of time. And then I think as you start to see those adaptations and those improvements, you become a little bit more invested in what you're doing. Next tip I have is thinking about your previous exercise experience. So if you're somebody who played a sport when you were younger, you probably have a little bit more exercise experience than somebody who didn't play a sport or somebody that's sedentary. And those two different people are going to have different exercise plans just because they're starting at different levels. So taking into consideration your previous experience with movement, with training, with exercise, whatever you want to refer to it as, is going to be important so that you can find something that works for you and you don't run the risk of injury. Because if you do too much too soon, you can get injured and make it harder for you to exercise the way you want to. So having a appropriate starting point in terms of intensity, frequency, and load or duration is going to be important for overall health.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that plays into the next point of understanding where you're currently at physically and your current capabilities. So probably going to be run through a bunch of different movements or a bunch of, aerobic tests or trying to get a gauge for your strength and your mobility and your aerobic capacity. I think it's just important to figure out where you're at, like where are you starting at? And then you can reverse engineer depending on what your goals are. If your goals are to run a marathon in the next 6 months, then we got to get your aerobic capacity up, but also some strength up. If your goals are to compete in a powerlifting event, then we got to make sure your 3-man lifts are on point as you get closer to your competition. Now, if your goal is to be able to go down the stairs and pick up your grandkid, we got to make sure that you got the strength in your legs to be able to, go down the stairs, and then also be able to get down to the floor, pick up the grandkid, and then be able to stand up from the floor as well. So we're trying to figure out where you're at, where you're starting at, and then reverse engineering your goals to help you get to where you're trying to be.
And speaking of like some certain things you want to be able to do, like, or you need to do in your life, I think tailoring your program to that is important, or your activity level to that is important, so that you're able to do those things, especially as you get older. And if you tie your training or exercise to what needs to be done in your life, I think that also increases buy-in, because what you're doing is intentional and it has a purpose. And I was reading Outlive by Peter Tita, I think that's his name, but he asked the question of like, what do you want to be able to do when you're 70 and 80? And you write down those 10 things, and then you make sure that your exercise program helps you do that. So it's easy for us to get up and down the stairs, get up and down from the chairs, walk long distances right now. But if we're not training to do that in the next 15, 20 years, those simple things are going to be very hard. So taking that into account, considering what you want to be able to do, and basing your training off of that will allow you to be consistent and help you be able to do that when you do get to that point, instead of waiting to you get there and you can't do it. Now you're trying to devise a program to help that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's good. So just to recap it, think about your life likes and interests. It's going to be a long game. Just stay consistent with it. Think about what your previous exercise history was, just to make sure that you don't like injure yourself or what you're trying to get back to. And then figuring out where you're currently at. And then once you figure out where you're at, reverse engineer your goals to make sure that you can do the day-to-day things that you need to do now and in the long run.
Boom, you heard Preacher Man. All right, we'll catch you guys on the next one.